Ladies and gentlemen, boy do I have a story for you guys today. So this is going to give you guys some insight into a side of me that you guys know absolutely nothing about. Unless you know me personally, you don't know anything about this. So it's about my high school experience, and I know I've talked a little bit about high school already, but I haven't really explained anything that happened besides my personal development. I didn't explain that I actually learned a ton about money, more than probably most people learn in high school, and it's not because of any class, and it's not because of any teacher at all. So we're going to dive deep. This is probably going to be a long video. I'm going to talk about why and how I started sneaker reselling and how it completely changed my life. So in order to start this story off, we're going to go back to about winter of 2019, I believe it was. So in this winter, I finally was in my sophomore year of high school. I was finally getting over some of the hurdles that plagued me for the first year and a half. I was starting to make some really great friends, and I was learning a lot. And in my journey, I came across Kanye West, of course. Not in person, but I started to learn more about the rap scene and more about the sneaker community. And I got really attracted to the idea of wearing a shoe that no one else had, right? Some sort of coveted item that I earned and I had that no one really knew what it was, or it was rare, or it had some sort of attribute that was desirable and made that shoe more wanted than others that were like cheaper. So I got obsessed with the idea of the Yeezys, right? If you guys know anything about Yeezys, you'll know that the main Yeezy model is the Yeezy 350 Boost V2. I believe it debuted back in 2016, I believe, is when the Yeezy V2 came out. And I only really started getting into it right here, January of 2019 maybe, I want to say. Maybe even a little bit before that. And my dad bought me my first pair of Yeezys. It was the 350 V2 Frozen Yellow. I'm going to put a picture up on the screen right here. So that was my first shoe, right? And after you get a shoe, at least in my high school, after you get one of these hype shoes, it kind of puts you on the map, right? It makes you one of these guys who knows about shoes because you're wearing something that is expensive, so you probably know a thing or two about the culture. This is when I met one of my best friends and one of the biggest influences into my life. I'm not going to say his name on camera, but just know this kid has done more for me than most people have. Pretty much anyone has, besides like immediate family. So we started talking, and he started showing me this thing called sneaker reselling. Basically, the idea of sneaker reselling is you buy a shoe online for a certain price and you sell it for a higher price. Of course, immediately I was immensely intrigued. I had to know what it was, but it seemed very complicated. In the meantime, I wanted more and more shoes to wear for myself because of the attention that I was getting and how it made me feel, because it made me feel like I had style. I was able to match some pretty cool outfits together. And yeah, all sorts of stuff started coming together for me. It was like a real hobby, which was something that I was lacking in the years prior. And as I was learning more and more about sneakers, I wanted them even worse and worse. But I was in that phase where I didn't know enough to actually apply my knowledge, so I relied on my dad some more. I asked him to buy me some off-white Air Max 90s in the black colorway. They were brand new, just came out. I actually know for a fact this was on February 24th, 2019. I remember the date because it was my dad's birthday that day. And I finally got to the city, and instead of me buying him a present, which would have been more appropriate, he bought me this pair of Off-Whites. And I was ecstatic. I think I didn't wear them until like April or May. I waited till it was really nice out, breezy, sunny, so I wouldn't step in muddy puddles. I would literally wait for the sunny days to come, not to feel the vitamin C on my skin, but to be able to wear these shoes. Crazy. It's a crazy thought. So I finally broke them out, and after this, I learned more about sneaker reselling, and I was finally able to cop my first ever shoe, which was the Sakai Blazer. Now, I put a picture of the Sakai Blazer up on the screen, but I still remember that this was when I decided to make a spreadsheet of all the sales that I made, which in hindsight was actually a great idea because it gave me some perspective, and it also helped with like to estimate how much money I was making each year and stuff like that. But at the beginning, it was just, I knew I had this one shoe. It was like an inventory check kind of thing. As soon as I got the shoe, I ran and excitedly told my friend, who basically got me into sneaker reselling, as I've already explained. And to my surprise, he actually said that he wants to buy it off of me. Now, if you guys know a thing or two about resellers, they only really buy stuff off of you if they want to wear it. Otherwise, they just keep flipping. So I knew that he wanted to wear this shoe. So I thought, of course, I'm going to give it to him. He gave me a great trade. He traded me for the LA to Chicago Jordan 1 SBs, which are now going for like, I don't even know, maybe $600, $700. But at the time, they were of equal value to the Sakai Blazers and the Legend Blue colorway. And basically what happened was we did the trade, and soon after I sold these Chicago SBs, I started to regret my decision. I started to wish that I never made this trade and that I kept these Sakai Blazers for myself. And this got me really angry because I knew that I wanted to wear them, but I sold them anyway. I did him a favor, but it definitely took a hit on like my ability to wear what I wanted. I was mad about it, but I kept moving. Of course, I got more shoes. I kept selling more and more stuff, and this is until about June of 2019. This is where stuff really took a turn. I remember the day. It was June 1st, 2019. I was at my country house, which was upstate, and I decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna join this reselling Discord. It was called Endurance, and it was made by Keith Adam. You guys might know who he is. If you don't, look him up on YouTube. He's a very well-known sneaker reseller and cook group manager. And I still remember the cost. It was $58.99 a month, which was insanely steep. It's actually pretty crazy that I managed to take such a big gamble on myself at the time, especially when I had barely any money. I was starting basically from nothing. And I decided to take this gamble, this leap of faith, if you will. And the first few months, it was insanely, like, I was very scared because I didn't really know what I was doing. I was totally inexperienced. So I was very, not scared, I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed as a whole, and I didn't know what to do. So I kept asking stupid questions in chat that most sneaker resellers that are prominent at what they do will laugh at and clown me for. But hey, I was just learning, and I was putting in the work to really learn the craft, and I don't regret it at all. So I kept asking these questions, and eventually I started to get a pretty good grasp of what sneaker reselling was. Over that summer, I definitely made a few sales. I was doing better and better. And then I started school, which kind of set me on a trajectory to not have as much free time. But from September to March of 2020, pretty much nothing changed. I kept amassing my sneaker collection more and more. At this point, I had a bunch of shoes. I had these right here, which recently restocked, the Yeezy 350 V2 Belugas. These were the original Yeezy 350 V2 that dropped, and I'm actually so grateful to still have these in the collection. Even though it's not my OG pair, it is a pair, and it's pretty much the exact same as the one that I had back in the day. So I had those. I really wanted some other stuff, but I couldn't get everything I wanted to get because I didn't have enough capital. And believe me, I really had these ambitions to have certain shoes, and that was my main motivation, if you will, for starting sneaker reselling, because I wanted to fund my own habit. They always say, like, don't get high off your own supply. I think that could be misconstrued, because sometimes it's good to be interested in the things that you're selling because it makes you want to do it more and want to progress. So I was getting shoes, I was making a decent amount, but then in March of 2020 is when everything took a shift. Once coronavirus started and the pandemic began, I was able to pretty much have entire weeks of free time at a time. And in this period was my best period of sneaker reselling and reselling as a whole. I started branching out to other things. I was selling Nintendo Switches because they went on extreme back order throughout the process of the pandemic. They were impossible to get, and they were fetching for around $500 on eBay, which was crazy because the retail was only around $300, and they were not even that hard to get. So I started branching out into things like this, or eventually into PS5s, into Xbox One X's, I believe they're called. All the new consoles were put on immediate back order, and I started this thing where I would buy shoes for resale prices, and I would like hold them to see if they would go up in value or not. This ended up not being as successful as I would have liked. Probably my least successful reselling endeavor that I took part in. But looking back at it, if I was a little bit smarter about it and had a little more patience, like if I was to go back and do that now, I would probably be doing pretty well. But anyway, this is a great show that a great indicator that my capital was growing, because I was able to flip these expensive $500 consoles, but while also putting multiple pairs of $300 shoes on the side and waiting for them to go up in value. And this continued for the bulk of the pandemic. Throughout the whole thing, it was definitely my best year of reselling ever, without a doubt. 2020 was a golden year for me. And not in terms of like working out and stuff, because I wasn't really doing that, but financially, best year easily, without a doubt. So I kept doing this. I got more in tune with certain websites, which I'm not going to mention in this video. I'm going to make a whole separate video on this. If you guys really like this content, I can keep doing it. But the point is, I kept doing this until about March of 2021, which is when I got my driver's license. I started focusing on some other things. I went to college. I didn't have as much time for myself. And overall, I went like this in terms of sneaker reselling. My habits kind of fell off. But that is basically the story of how I started sneaker reselling. Now on to the point about why it changed my life entirely. It gave me a whole different perspective on the idea of making money online, and it really proved to me that it was possible. I mean, some of the shoes that I ended up with, like for example these Off-White Prestos, I bought these with my own money. They're worth about 1.4K new. And I'm not bragging right now. I'm literally trying to show you guys that it actually is possible to achieve your goals. Like, all these videos, I feel like I've just said stuff, but now I'm actually showing some proof that it's possible. And through this whole reselling process, I learned that making money online is really a viable option. And it kind of changed my perspective on life as a whole. Because before this, I just thought you had to work a 9 to 5, hate your job, make your salary, the usual lifestyle. But this gave me a glimpse into the world of financial freedom. And for that, I'm ever thankful to Sneaker Reselling, to my friend who showed me, to all the people who helped me through it, to my dad for sure, I owe him a debt of gratitude, and to everyone in general. So, with that, I think that pretty much rounds out my story of how I started Sneaker Reselling and how it changed my life. I'll see you guys soon. Thank you for watching.